Hey folks, it's been a while. I've been busy with work and projects outside. I have done some work on the car, as you can see. Done some additional body work. I actually did some painting on it, but it didn't turn out quite as good as I wanted. So as you can tell, I've started the sanding on it. I'm going to try to get a smoother surface, and then I'll come back in and repaint again. So more videos on that later, but I had painted just the body part of it. You can see it's kind of a reddish, dark, deep red color. But I decided to set that aside for a little bit because my son's been really pushing me to do more work on the car, and I just got a little tired of doing the body work. So I decided to set that aside and make it my goal to try to get the engine turning. Maybe it'll start, maybe it won't. So I've done a few things. The first thing I did is I took out all the spark plugs and I poured just a little bit of oil down in them, let it set overnight. I also filled the crankcase up with oil, and then after I had that in, I turned the engine over by hand. So to do that, I stuck my crank in the front end here, spun it, and could feel that it was moving pretty free. I'm hoping that the oil got a chance to work around down through the valves and really lubed them up. The other thing I did is I put the radiator back on. When I did this, I was a little short with some gaskets. So here I had to make my own gasket out of some material that I bought. And then into the top here, I also had to make another gasket for that. So went pretty well. I put it all back together and put the radiator on it, and today I filled it up. And I had some leaks, but I was able to tighten them down, and as of right now there's no leaks. So we'll see what happens when I try to turn it over, whether it's going to leak or not. And what I actually put in there, instead of putting in water or radiator fluid, I put in windshield wiper fluid. That's something that someone else with an older car like this advised me to do. So I put in some standard windshield wiper fluid that has a rating of -20. I got that from AutoZone, as you can see. I was down there getting some other parts. So that's in, the oil's in, and then I started working on the fuel system. Now we don't have the gas tank in yet, but we obviously needed a way to get fuel into the carburetor. So what I did is I grabbed one of the old fuel canisters. I have two of them. I grabbed both of them and I took them apart. The newer looking one didn't look so great on the inside. So it was a bit rusty. I couldn't actually even get it apart, but you can hear some stuff in there. And this is the old float inside of it, and it really didn't work so well. So I decided to look at the older one that I had, and I was able to get this all the way apart, get it cleaned up, and it doesn't look the greatest, but it actually, I think it works pretty well. And so I will end up cleaning this up more, but what I did is I had the glass bell at the bottom, and I had a couple of them, so I ended up taking the best one that I had with a clean filter and a clean gasket in there. All were good. I put a little shut-off valve in there so I could control how much fuel I wanted to have go out, and I just hooked it up with a rubber hose to the intake of the carburetor. So I'm not going to connect this to the gas tank. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to fill this up with gas, and it'll trickle down into the glass bell and then down into the carburetor. So that's what I plan to do. For what I want to do in terms of get this running, just to see if I can get it running, that'll work short term. And then the other thing that I did on the other side, I added some wiring. So I added the coil wire and I'll show you the starter in a minute. So I connected the starter cable down to the starter. That's one cable I had to replace because the previous one was about 6 inches too short or so. So I got a new one, put that in today, and that's all set. So the other thing that I did hopefully you can see it here. I put the flooring back in so that I could have the starter switch in place down there for it. So that's the foot pedal starter. I don't have the dash back in yet, so in place of that I've put in a temporary switch just to energize the coil. So when I flip this up, it'll be good to go. All of that stuff comes down to the battery compartment. Everything's hooked up, ready to go. And the last thing that we were waiting on now, which I just finished, is the oil pressure gauge. So oil pressure gauge connects in down here to the side of the engine block, and since I don't have the dash in, I just ran that line outside and it's sitting up to the oil pressure gauge there. I put a seat back in so I can temporarily sit inside and try to fire this thing up. And yep, so we're nearly ready to go. We're gonna put something over the seat so I can sit in it, and then we're gonna push it out of the workshop, and we'll get the camera set up on a tripod and we'll give it a shot. Being I don't have the generator in, as soon as I get this thing rolling and going, I don't know how long that battery's gonna last, since I'm not going to be recharging it, but that may be one of my next steps, is to get the generator installed and get it recharging the battery as I'm running it. So I just thought this would be kind of a interesting little side project while the body just kind of sits and relaxes for a little bit. Be nice to see if I can get the engine going, so hang tight. We'll get it ready to go, and we'll get it outside and see what happens.